Welcome to ViperTV Live. How's everybody doing out there in Radio Land? Man, today is going to be cool. Not only we got all kinds of stuff to talk about, especially with the triumphant return of the First Amendment, but also I get to introduce to you probably one of the coolest people that I've met as far as being an outspoken voice for not just democracy, but also just human rights in general. And let me go ahead and introduce everybody to Culinary Anarchy. Welcome.
Howdy, howdy. Howdy, howdy. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Very honored to be introduced like that. I consider myself just to be a fucking dishwasher who got lucky. I don't really see like I'm doing anything revolutionary, if that makes any sense.
Well, I think that a whole lot of it has to do with just literally giving a shit. So, I mean, that alone is quite a feat. But also, don't forget about the fact that you posted, sorry. I can't help but laugh every time I think about it. But you published probably a book with maybe one of the best titles ever. And for for folks who don't know about it, tell them about your project. What's the name of your book?
Well, I've got that role, but the one that you're specifically referring to is one that. Now, let me give people a background on this, okay? First off, I grew up in Virginia dealing with a bunch of racist redneck assholes, and I think it was probably about 4 years ago, somebody said something stupid about the Confederacy, and just to be an ass, I posted a meme and said, oh, this is going to be the title for my next book. And it was just this thing that said, places to pee in the South and guide to what's left of the Confederate monuments. And then I started thinking about the idea, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Let me do this. And again, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, the Confederate capital of the South.
I know all about Richmond. I played in Shockoe Bottom so much you don't even know.
Yeah, so my first apartment was right off of Hanover and Boulevard, which is literally around the corner from the United Daughters of the Confederacy. So I grew up as a punk rocker in the 90s, going to shows in Richmond, getting shit-faced, and then pissing all over those monuments on Monument Avenue before they got cleaned up. And specifically with what went down in Charlottesville and the background behind that, as we both know, one of the biggest weaknesses that conservatives have is their own fragile ego. And if people are scared of them, if people are intimidated by them, scared, that'll get some power. But as we've seen so many times with so many examples, if you humiliate them, that is one of their key weak points right there. And so, these monuments were created essentially as, ways to remind people, hey, the Civil War is not really over. We're still calling shots. There was no reason for these things to be put up in front of courthouses and shit like that. And they were done to, again, inspire fear and to intimidate.
Right. It was 100% intentional.
Exactly. And there was nothing to fucking honor. I mean, one of the statues that they removed in Charlottesville was to Nathaniel Forrest, who was one of the early founders of the Ku Klux Klan. Now, you got to understand, Nathaniel Forrest had never been through Charlottesville. There was no historical connection to that man in that town. There was no evidence that he had ever even, stayed the night there and got his, horse some new shoes or anything like that. So, they had already passed the resolution. They were going to remove this shit. And then all these whack jobs came out in full force, and unfortunately a young lady lost her life when some jackass piece of shit ran his SUV through, and I believe that he is still currently serving a prison sentence for that.
Yeah, rest easy, Heather.
Exactly. And again, Charlottesville, for those of you that don't know, is essentially the backyard of Richmond. It's an hour up 64, and so the two communities are very, very closely connected. I've partied in Charlottesville, bands from Charlottesville.
Yeah, it really hurt me because I saw the Asylum Street Spankers farewell tour in Charlottesville.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know what you mean by Richmond. It's definitely has no problem celebrating its Confederate, past. Like I said, I mean, I spent time in Shockoe Bottom, and I mean, I played gigs at, the first slap on the upright bass I learned was at the Nancy Reagan from Thomas from Kings of Nothing. So when they discovered that slave jail there in Shockoe Bottom, I was not like at all surprised.
When you say the Nancy Reagan, man, that brings up a lot of really good memories on Gray Street right there.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure you've spent more nights than you can count at the Village Inn or at the fucking Village right there on Harrison. And so, but yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. But even Richmond, growing up, it's still divided north to south.
Mm-hmm.
North side of the James River, where VCU, the Fan, Shockoe Bottom, even Church Hill, Jackson Ward, all of those neighborhoods are very, very much, liberal, punk. That's, we gave birth to the war. So, I mean,
yeah. I got
these bandits from Richmond. It's like, technically they're from Charlottesville, but we also spawned Gore. So that kind of balances.
VCU art students.
I mean, I apparently, I didn't know him well, but apparently I knew Dave Rocky as just Dave for a minute. And didn't realize that he was Dave Rocky until one night he mentioned that he was going on tour, and I made an ass out of myself. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were in a band." He's like, "What?" And literally, I think I was like 19 or 20 at the time. I was a huge Gore fan, but I had no idea that Dave at the bar was Odorous Ungress. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, they were just a bunch of punk rocker fucking art students. I mean, in fact, Balzac from the Jaws of Death, his sister used to be one of the most ridiculous, still is one of the most ridiculously talented chefs. She's retired now. But yeah, I mean, she was like, one of the first big name chefs that I knew growing up because she ran a spot called Avalon for years on Main Street that was absolutely incredible. And again, this is like Balzac the Jaws of Death's older sister. So
there's the family claim to fame come Thanksgiving time. Everybody's like, in their cardigans and whatnot, and he shows up in full costume. Like, what? What am I supposed to do? I'm Balzac.
Actually, no. Mike is honestly one of the most chill, humble guys I do not have the transcript of the interview, and it kills me because I have tried to find it. I don't know where the fuck it went. I interviewed Mike Dirks probably 10 years ago, and one of the things that I did with my interviews for a long time was I would always ask whoever I was interviewing, give me a recipe that I can put at the end for my fans. And this motherfucker went out of the way and sent me like a 3-page recipe fucking beef for braised beef hearts and how you had to soak them in butter. But I mean, this was like a dead-on perfect fucking recipe for braised beef hearts. And I'm like, of course this would be,
of course.
But keep in mind, that is Mike Dirks' stage presence, and behind the scenes, off camera, off stage, he is genuinely a great dude, super humble, doesn't have the rock star ego at all. Very shy. Like, you would not expect that dude to be the dude that's on stage decapitating and spraying, fake bottom liquids. And they're actually playing out here in Berkeley next month, and I think I'm going to try to get tickets. Only problem is I'm going to see Mickey Avalon the night before that.
Oh, okay.
Mickey Avalon and then Gore right after that.
That's an interesting juxtaposition.
I mean, that's one of the great things about living out here in San Francisco. One of the reasons why we talked about it a little bit earlier. I could never ever imagine myself living anywhere else outside of the Bay Area. So
Yeah, I was there for a few days, and it was so difficult to like figure out what entertainment I actually wanted to take, like to sacrifice to go see. And I ended up, one of the big ones was getting to catch Squirrel Nut Zippers live, and
oh hell yeah.
they turned the entire club into a conga line.
Yes.
Yeah,
Those are the shows I love right there, man.
absolutely fantastic. So, as we were talking about your book, I don't think that the crowd actually got to hear the name of, what is the name of your book?
Okay, so the name of the book is Places to Pee in the South, A Guide to What's Left of the Confederate Monuments. This was not planned. I just actually had to look something up in it recently, but I got a copy of it right here. This monument is no longer there. Gender neutral bathroom, as you can see. This is the old monument that I want to say was right on the intersection of Boulevard and Monument Avenue. And yeah, what's even more funny about the book is after I went through and I researched it and I wrote it, I found out that ironically enough, that it is the most comprehensive guide to these monuments. There are a couple of other books there's one I believe that was done in Mississippi that covers more of the Mississippi monuments, but it doesn't cover all, I want to say 16 states. It's been a couple of years since I researched and wrote it, so the facts aren't like all there. But one of the things that really surprised me is there was even shit in my hometown because I actually grew up slightly southeast of Richmond. But there were monuments that we had no idea that had anything to do with the Confederacy. And I remember 2 years ago, I hadn't been home in like probably 4 or 5 years or whatever. I went back to go see my brother Mike to do a film out there and got lost because I'm looking for Magruder Boulevard as I'm coming down Hampton Road Center Parkway, and it's not there. And I'm like, oh, maybe it's the next exit. Maybe I know this street will take me to this and this and this. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck happened to Magruder Boulevard? What's this, like, Neil Armstrong shit? He's like, oh, yeah, apparently Magruder was some sort of, like, twisted, sadistic Confederate general or some shit. They had to like rename half the fucking schools, and they never told us about any of these people. They
Yeah,
never told
and
us.
now they're putting Lee's portrait back up at West Point.
Oh my god! And it's people have to understand that and I say this with all sincerity and honesty. I went in the book with an open mind. I started researching it with an open mind of let me be objective. Let me see if there is really anything honorable about this, or is this just, is everything I've been told, this like, okay, we know history is told by the side that won it, but did the Confederates have a fucking point? Was there more to the story than what I've been told? And the more I did my research, the more I realized how hideous these folks actually were. They, you know, anybody that wants to say, oh, well, the majority of the people that, that fought, they didn't own slaves, da, 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 da. And one of the things that I make very, very clear to them, and I cite the specific dates in the book, so I don't want to misspeak, but there was a speech given in, I believe, 2 or 3 months prior to the attack on Fort Sumter, where the Confederacy was in its infancy, and the vice president at the time made what was called the Cornerstone speech. In this speech, he made it absolutely fucking clear that the foundation of the Confederacy was slavery, and that the natural state of the quote-unquote Negro, apologize if I'm offending for anybody for quoting people, but that the natural state of these individuals was slavery. And so you can't say to me that these folks that didn't own people didn't know what the fuck they were signed to. They may not have owned slaves, but they were sure as shit fine with it. They were fine with other people being in chains. They knew what they were getting into. They knew what they were fighting for. They knew, and, when I wrote this book 4 years ago, I did not think that we were going to be seeing what the fuck we're seeing right now. And it's real fucking scary. And, but that's one of those things where, again, I feel like the best thing for people to do we've seen it time and time again, keeping our sense of humor and keeping a sense of hope, because, you know, I got to tell you, man, it's broken my heart numerous times where I have posted, you know, asking my fans, what is giving you hope? And overwhelming the overwhelming level of cynicism and hopelessness. And it's like, motherfuckers, y'all got to stop this shit, man, because giving up is how the fuck they win. Losing hope makes it easy for them to go ahead and, you know, you're just throwing your hands up. No, you know, we have to be able to keep our resilience, hope, love, joy. These are all acts of defiance. And, you know, I think I posted a video about it, but somebody was like, you know, how the fuck can you go see concerts and shit? Because I went to go see the Pixies, and then a week later I went to go see Modest Mouse and Flaming Lips. And it's like, the fuck, like, do you think that I'm just going to sit and watch the news 24 hours a day and be fucking depressed? Fuck no. Like,
Well, not
right
just
now,
that, but then the fascists take away all the things that make life actually worth living.
yeah, it's like, you know, I'm gonna fucking enjoy legal weed until my fucking dying breath. I grew up in the fucking 90s, man. Like, literally my entire criminal record is all fucking misdemeanor marijuana charges.
I too have one of those.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it's like, you know, it's kind of my badge of honor. I've got my what is it, my mugshot for my first arrest back in Fayetteville, Arkansas, back in like 2002. So, you know, but I don't take that shit for granted. I don't take, you know, my flower garden for granted. And I know that that's not the biggest deal in the world. But again,
But it's a sign of progress, really. Also, like you know, I mean, we've gone from the reefer madness days to where, you know, I have older family members talking to younger family members if they can get them some reefer, you know, for their pain and whatnot, when before they were like, no, that stuff's for dope addicts, you know what I mean? But it's always funny how it's always that way until it finally comes that they might actually need a toke.
Well, and it's funny too, because like, yeah, my wife does not smoke cannabis. She'll take a couple of edibles every once in a while to help her sleep at night. But we ended up getting married in front of the dispensary that her and I had been going to for the past several years. And here's the best thing: it was her idea.
Amazing.
Completely. I gotta give a shout out to my absolute favorite dispensary. It's a little bit far for us to get to, but it's worth it. 7 stars out in Richmond, California. They won every fucking award for like being the best awesome dispensary or whatever. But they have a absolutely beautiful, like 2 or 3 story mural on the side of the dispensary that says "Keep Hope Alive," and it doesn't have anything to do with cannabis at all. But we had originally planned on getting married at a courthouse and just keeping it simple, and then, you know, shit goes the family and da 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 da. And I told her, I was like, you know, our wedding day, we've been going here for a minute. Let's go get a couple of photos just in front of the thing, even if it's just me throwing my camera up on a tripod and us doing some selfies. I love the message, and so finally my wife was like, you know, fuck it, why don't we see if they'll just let us get married there? And I was like, all right, cool. Hey, I know the owner. He's cool as shit. Let me shoot him an email. And like, before she could change her mind, I immediately had emailed 7 stars, and within 15 minutes they got back to us. And yes, we would be absolutely thrilled. Let us know. Da 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 da. You know, what's even cooler is, and I got to give a shout out to Ian for this. Yeah, they were very, very awesome with, not only did they not charge us, but they also gave us a gift basket. And still, every time we go back in there, which I probably need to go back in there before I have an interview tomorrow, you know, the customer service, they're still congratulating us. And the other thing that I love about them too is the fact that Ian, the owner, is very much pro supporting small businesses. They're always supporting pop-up. They do fucking yoga in the courtyard there every other Sunday. So it's not just a dispensary. He's trying to turn it into, you know, a way for him to really be able to give back to the community. They do art pop-ups, food pop-ups, all sorts of shit. Anytime we go by there seems to be, there's always some kind of an event there.
I always appreciate people who will just take a raw space and just let really good stuff happen.
Yeah. And like I said, the message out there on the interstate, or on the mural, just the keep hope alive thing. So it's like anybody sees our wedding photos, if they don't know it's a dispensary, it just looks like a beautiful mural. Anybody
Okay.
that knows the Bay Area is like, oh, wait a second, y'all got married there? I'm like, yeah.
Well, I mean, if it seems appropriate for your relationship, why not?
Well, I mean, again, it's the message more than anything else, and I think that right now that message is more important than ever. That's why comedians and musicians right now are absolutely critical to our survival because again, if we lose hope, we're fucked. And that's the easiest thing to do. One of the things too that I've noticed about, especially with social media, is it sounds like they're the majority in a lot of times because a lot of these people, they don't have fucking lives. They don't have relationships. They don't
No.
have families. They
Like the
don't have.
time that you had actually spent cultivating a hobby or a talent, they're spent cyberbullying lesbians on the internet.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, if you would put in, a fraction of the time to improving yourself as you do to fucking hating and blaming everybody else for your shit, you might not be sleeping alone, But I mean, it's like I joke about all the time, man. One of my favorite activities on Saturday and Sunday morning when I wake up and I go outside and I smoke a joint and I have my coffee and I get to read all the comments because I see the timestamps and I see where the fuck they're at. They're sitting there pissed off at 3 o'clock in the fucking morning, leaving these like 2-page essays. And it's like, dude, you think I'm gonna read this shit? Fuck no. I'm not gonna.
It's like you literally posted one sentence and it was enough to make them write you a diatribe, and then they call you triggered. I'm not exactly sure how that works. Oh, did you see that? I believe it was New Mexico that we picked up a seat in the House, and now we have enough to release the Epstein files if Thomas Massey keeps going along with it.
It was actually Arizona.
Oh, it was Arizona, not New Mexico.
It was Arizona. I'm sorry. Just to go something real fast. Sorry. Another one of my numerous, I don't want to refer to them as bosses, but contractors just emailed me about a job on Saturday that I had to jump on real fast. So this weekend's going to be so colorful as always.
You got to hustle in today's economy.
Oh yeah, no, that's why, I mean, that's one of the great things about San Francisco is the fact that I'm able to do that and hopefully going to start collaborating and doing some new stuff with a friend of mine here real soon. We talked about that yesterday, but I'm not gonna go into that quite yet, but it should be a good opportunity, but we'll see. But what the fuck was I gonna say? No, like I said, the whole thing about keeping hope and keeping joy, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I got into gardening this past year and trying to focus on cultivating life, trying to focus on what can I do? Because let's face it, again, we're dealing with an overwhelming flood of negativity. We're dealing with so much shit in this 24-hour news cycle that our brains just are not fucking designed for this at all. And you think that 175 years ago, it would take word, 6 months to spread across country, and now it's literally fucking instantaneously. So
I mean, unfortunately, this is something that Goebbels would have dreamed of having, but also at the same time, we have learned from the lessons from the anti-fascists of the past. So we got a question in the chat from Black Dragon saying, did you say in your book about the SCOTUS cases that pre-started the Civil War?
No, I did not. That was something I didn't cover because, honestly, I wasn't aware of it at the time. I did cover kind of the surrounding history behind why the Confederacy started to form, as well as the early history of the KKK and the UDC, the UDC.
Because we all know that those statues, when they came up, they didn't come up right after the Civil War. They came up around the 50s and the 60s as a response to civil rights.
Well, and
from
that's
the
also
UDC.
Well, and that's one of the things that people want to scream about. Oh, the Confederacy were Democrats, and it's like, you don't really know your history that well, because again, it started, and I do talk about that, is the fact that you went from the Democrats that were these Southern Democrats that were part of the Confederacy, blah 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 blah. Here's my thing: I don't give a fuck what banner or what title you want to call fascism. It's still the same fucking thing, and you can wrap it in whatever cloth or symbolism you want to, but it's the same ideals that there is something about you
Yeah.
that's superior. You want to control, blah 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 blah. But the thing that people don't realize is, the South started to shift with that when they formed the Dixiecrats as a way to try to pull votes away from, I want to say it was MacArthur, but again, it's been a while since I researched this. But what ultimately came to a head was when they flipped due to the Civil Rights Act being passed. And that's what gave birth to the modern Republican Party. And anybody that doesn't want to believe that, it's like, okay, go to your fucking Klan rally and ask how many of those people voted Democrats. So
Well,
it's
not just that's a good litmus test where you just say, go ahead and call a Klansman a Democrat, I dare you. Aside from that, you can literally listen to Lee Atwater talk about how the Southern strategy was meant to work. He gave the game away completely. I even actually included that in my documentary that I made. Black Dragon says the two cases that started the Civil War told the southern states to fight for your slaves. It was all about the cotton industry. Well, yeah, that was well known. I mean, the whole idea of states' rights and then using that as I like to call them buffer arguments. Basically, it's what people say so they don't have to actually admit that they're dreadful people. So they don't have to admit that, there's a reason that Meemaw was screaming at Ruby Bridges in a book is not because of CRT or DEI. The whole states' rights is, in my opinion, it's just another one of those buffer arguments. They don't want to just straight up, because if there's one thing that bigots hate, it's being called bigots. I don't understand. They should be genuinely proud to embrace that, but if you call it out for some reason, that's a problem. But the whole saying states' rights is just their way of saying, no. We know what it was about, but we're going to use this sophistry to basically alleviate ourselves of any guilt or shame.
Well, and that's one of the things too that even I mention in my book is, there's a lot of history with my family that I don't know, that has been literally lost in time, that I'm not going to go and, swab my mouth to get a DNA test or anything. But like, my grandfather was born on a fucking dirt farm in Cowpen, North Carolina. And yes, that is a real town, believe it or not. But, God only knows what the fuck my grandfather or my great grandfather was into, or my great grandfather, where they stood, da 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 da. And you know what? I really don't give a shit, because that was them. And there was a lot of things that, growing up in Virginia in the 90s, language that we used, things like that were socially acceptable at that time. That one of the advantages of traveling is, you get the fuck out of your little small town and you start actually meeting these people that you're talking about, and you start seeing how your attitudes and your words, your actions have an impact on these communities, and you start to fucking listen to them. And it's, one of the things that I'm working on right now is an article about responding to intention, and that's a whole other subject, but it's like, I may think that I'm being funny, I may think that I'm being innocent, but if the person that I'm talking about is getting offended, then I need to shut the fuck up and listen to them, because at that point, it's, if my goal is to knock them down, that's one thing. But if my goal is to, be laughing with everybody, then that's fine. You got to listen to your audience. And it's the same thing, we all talk shit in the kitchen. And if I'm doing it right, the guy that I'm talking shit about is laughing their ass off. and there's still an underlying level of respect.
Well,
But again,
tact is 90% of life, in my opinion, as
yeah,
far as that goes. But also, what you was talking about with being, taught stupid stereotypes from a young age and then having to go out and experience life. That's what happened with me with the military. That's, how I learned that everything that I was taught was bullshit.
like, I'll be honest with you, man, I didn't know shit about fucking Latino culture growing up in Virginia until I moved out to California, and I was suddenly the token white boy in the kitchen, where it was, that was it. And all of a sudden, I was thrust into this culture, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I was an asshole, and I deserved the shit that was given to me. And I don't want to speak in generalities, but my experience with the Latino culture, which I have absolute love and respect for, we'll talk about that in a bit. uh, but because I don't want to say I was narrow-minded. I was just young and fucking stupid, and I didn't know any better. And it took my guys in my kitchen a while to warm up to me and for me to learn enough about them to where I wasn't being an asshole to them. Because I honestly, looking back on it, I probably came in with a bit of arrogancy, and unfortunately, I'm gonna fucking put on it, subconscious white superiority. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
And
it's also just being the boss, running a crew. I mean, you tend to forget about the individual and focus more on the job. That was another thing from the military I had to learn too, was to be able to run a crew and to not just make sure the job gets done, but to ensure that you actually do treat people as as individuals. Don't instantly think because one thing didn't get done where you're like, what's your excuse? No, sometimes there's a reason.
yeah, well, and I also learned real quick with a lot of these dudes that, I'll never forget. I had this dishwasher named Arturo, and he, like I said, barely spoke any English, kind of heavy set, dopey looking kid, did not look coordinated at all. And I've told this story a few times. I will never in my life forget. I'm in the office closing down, getting shit done or whatever, and I hear the music switch from the 80s new wave station to salsa. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I go back out in the dining room, and I had this waitress, her name was Ildigo, and I knew she was a professional dancer. Like, that's what she did. And she would go off for, 2 or 3 weeks at a time and whatever. But I go out there and I see this kid, Arturo, and like I said, kind of heavy set, chunky motherfucker. This dude is whipping this chick around like a rag doll. I mean, spinning her like a top, throwing this chick through her legs. I have never seen dancing like that in person. Like, this looks like something out of a fucking movie. And I've come to find out that not only is this guy like, does he know how to dance? Back in El Salvador, where he was from, he was a professional dance instructor. Like, this dude mastered the salsa, mastered the tango, mastered the cha-cha. I ain't never seen anybody move like this, let alone somebody that. And again, this was my dishwasher at the time, and that right there opened my eyes. It's like, this dude's willing to give up his entire life to come up and make a better life for himself and be a fucking dishwasher at my shitty little bar in Oakland. Like, I
The
gotta respect that with me.
I forget who said it, but there's a great quote that says, "There is so much talent that is lost to poverty."
Yes. Yes.
And I think genuinely that's one of the reasons why during the Renaissance things were able to flourish, is because people like Michelangelo were broke ass artists, but they were patrons of the arts who wanted to give him money to support him because they liked what he did. And, I think that was genuinely one of the big reasons for the Renaissance, is because artists were able to flourish as opposed to living in poverty.
Yes. Well, and I think too, one of my all-time core philosophies that I have expounded through the website and everything that I've ever done, I strongly believe in collaboration yielding better results than competition. And that's one of the things that really pisses me off about modern society is we have the technology, we have the resources, we have the ability to be able to just about eliminate most diseases. Obviously, there's, but let's face it, whole other subject. The money is in the symptoms, not the cure, blah, 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 blah. But we've got
Unless it's
the ability
Tylenol.
to, yeah, no, Jesus Christ.
Sorry,
But,
plaintiff number one. Sorry, plaintiff. So we need to probably refer to them as.
Yeah, no shit. But the point is, we've got the ability to do this, and people don't recognize potential. One of the most inspiring stories I think I've ever heard is there is this little kid that lived in Africa, and this is a true story. I believe they've made a documentary. I've read about his story numerous times. This little motherfucker living in the middle of the desert, they ain't got no water, they ain't got no electricity or whatever, ends up hearing about wind power, and then starts hiking to like the nearest libraries, like 6 or 7 miles away, and gets a couple of old issues of Popular Mechanics. And this little motherfucker, who's like 12 years old, living in the middle of fucking Africa, no running water, no nothing, reads these Popular Mechanics and figures out how to fucking build a wind pump, a wind-driven water pump. And through scrap metal and sheer ingenuity, this little motherfucker went out and was able to provide his village with clean water and electricity. And
well, I mean, it's astounding. You know, when the older generation, it's always their thing to bag on the younger generation. Saying that they're not as intelligent just because they tend to slip further and further away from tradition, except for this certain upcoming crop of. I don't even want to get into that, but I hate to say it, but the kids now, they think faster than us. They move faster than us. They take information in faster than us. Their attention spans aren't as long, but I think that they have the ability, which is to say, no, this is stupid. We can do this better, which is something that a lot of previous generations never did, because either A, we were just told to go with the status quo, or B, just had curiosity just kind of knocked out of you, either physically or emotionally or financially.
Well, and that's what I'm getting back to, is if we as a society collectively decided that we were going to actually take care of each other, and made sure that every little kid had, food, shelter, health care, a fucking tablet, and access to the internet, we would have hoverboards, man. Like, we would fucking straight up have hoverboards. There would be some little kid out in fucking Brazil that would figure out how to fucking fix the whatever issues, and we would have hoverboards by now. But again, because every single person on Earth has that same level of potential. Every single person on Earth has a different way of thinking. And there was another thing. This was a while ago that I was reading it, but what the fuck would they call it? People that are trying to study diseases and trying to figure it out, they couldn't. And so what they did was they turned this problem that they were trying to solve into a fucking platform game and put it online. And all of a sudden they kind of crowdsourced it, and you had people that had no experience in biology or any of the, but they were looking at it as a game. They were looking at it from an abstract point of view. Okay, here's the problem. This is the ultimate goal.
Thinking outside the box is what we need for modern solutions. Like, let's look at, for example, Kat, who's running up in Chicago. She said that, politicians, they have to do this telephone time, which is where they have to spend time talking to pretty much wealthy donors to convince them to give them money. Whereas what she was doing was she was doing game streaming and taking donations in that way, grassroots style. Dude, when is the last time that you saw a politician genuinely try to not only, because they could also, that's hours they can talk about their platform. That's hours that they can use to debunk propaganda. But just embracing these modern solutions, I think, is one of the ways that it's going to help us get out of these metaphorical dark ages. I still say to this day that if it wasn't for camera phones, we would be straight back in 1930s fascism. A lunatic Scottish dude said that the gentleman that you were mentioning, he was educated to age 12 when the drought hit his father's farm and they couldn't afford school, and he now has a PhD and is a UN energy official.
There you go. And I mean, again, that's the kind of shit that I want to see. That is one of the reasons why, even with, running Culinary Anarchy, my approach towards recipes, I have always told people that the recipes are templates and that I want people to go and play with them. I want people to be able to take the baseline idea, feel empowered to be able to do it, and then go get fucking weird with it. Go expand upon the idea. Go try different variations on it. And just like you were saying, you know, cultivating innovation like that is how we progress as a society, because you're thinking about different things. And that's one of the reasons why I'm glad I never went to culinary school, is because I don't view food in the same manner that I think a traditional chef would. I think that that's also why you hear me talk about, cooking, working in a kitchen, the restaurant lifestyle, more in terms of music than culinary terms, because that's how I understand it. I don't look at food as being, oh, I've got to put a starch, I've got to, it's like, no, this has kind of got to work together like this. There's got to be a sense of harmony. When I'm writing, a menu, I try to craft it like an album. And again, encouraging other people to think in the same way, empowering other people. That's how we are able to thrive. And I'm not insecure enough to where I'm like, oh, I'm going to hide my recipes and fucking, fuck the gatekeepers, man. No, I want to encourage people, because that's how we thrive. That's the only way we continue. That's the only way that the scene continues to grow. And, same thing. I've told this story a few times, but it's like I was in a store, and a couple of chicks, little teenager girls, whatever, in their Misfits shirt, and Mama Bear was with them, and I looked at him, I was like, oh, you like the Misfits? And Mama Bear looked at me like, oh shit, here we go, here's the gatekeeping, what's your favorite? And I was like, listen, if you like the Misfits, gotta check out Social Distortion, gotta check out Rancid. And Mama Bear immediately tone changed at 180 degrees. She's like, see, girls, this is what I was telling you about, like this, and Tim Armstrong, da. And it was, again, man, I'm not trying to dissuade those people. I'm trying to, like, okay, here, if you're into this, go and check this out. Let me share this with you. Let me, because again, that's the only thing that's going to save us right now, in my opinion. But again, who the fuck am I? I'm a goddamn dishwasher that got lucky.
Well, there's contrarians out there who feel the need to bolster their own ego or their own insecurities by instantly latching onto a subculture and ensuring that every person that doesn't know, who the third main producer on this one record's, fifth obscure single, if you don't know them, then suddenly you're not a fan of the music. And those people, they're the ones who stop making everything fun, and they start making it so that, especially people who are new that want to get into something, that they're turned off by it because they don't want to have to deal with all the gatekeeping.
Yeah, and that's what really, especially because we live in a fucking age where we have access to so much information, and it's like I try to tell people all the time, man, the internet's more than just talking shit, cat photos, and porn. Like, I was just talking to my mom about this early, I studied art when I was a kid. That's what I thought I was going to be. I was going to be an artist, not a chef, and then I was going to be a musician. It took me a while. I cooked for years before I realized that I was a fucking chef and came out of the closet on that. But one of the things that I was talking to my mom about was the fact that, if I wanted to get into pottery when I was a kid growing up, it would have meant her having to take time off work, pay for classes, take me to classes, and then I would have had to go somewhere specific on their schedule, use their equipment, do it their way, and it would have been the obstacles to be able to learn how to do pottery would have been overwhelming. Whereas now, I looked at it. Hey, fucking Amazon. I'm not trying to promote Amazon, but right now, if I wanted to go on Amazon, I could literally buy a little tabletop kiln that, I wouldn't be able to do giant vases, but I'd be able to make coffee cups and fucking ashtrays and shit.
But YouTube University exists for a reason. I can think of a million different things that I learned how to do ever since, I discovered YouTube. I think
that's how I learned how to fucking work on motorcycles.
Well,
man.
the thing is what you was talking about with going to pottery school or even going to, culinary school is it's the same with music school is formal education figures out a way how to take something that you really like to do and make you really not like it.
In some respects, I will agree with that because I definitely feel like, for example, I've been doing Pilates recently, trying to get back into shape, especially after the ankle injury last May. And one of the things that I gotta say about that is, yeah, doing the YouTube videos is really, really helpful. I'm definitely noticing a difference, but I also know enough about, physical fitness and with background in martial arts to know that I'm not doing the shit correctly. And I know that it's one of the, but I need hands-on instruction.
Yeah. Some people are visual learners. Some people can just read. Some people need hands-on. Some people are just audio.
Well, they're going to be able to see things in my posture that I'm not able to see.
Well, yeah.
Like corrections and help me refine my technique. And I get what you're saying. There's a lot of you have to do it in this box. You can't play. That's why I called it Culinary Anarchy, man, because I don't want people to feel constrained. It's like, learn the rules so you can learn how to fuck with them.
It's like the food version of the legendary Shack Shakers, where every song is completely different. You know what they started off as their influences, but by the end of the song, you're just like, okay, we just had an extremely unique experience. I've always kind of thought of what it is that you do sort of like the Shack Shakers.
And that's, that's the thing is, I mean, when I tell people cook like you fuck, it is not just a catchphrase. That whole thing, it's like some of the best meals of my life, and I'm not making this shit up, some of the best meals of my life, and you probably maybe have heard of me in Richmond, but like, get off work, go to the bar, end up at the after party, and because I'm weird socially, I would go to some stranger's house, and while everybody's in the living room partying, I'm drunk off my ass, well, fucking around, oh yeah, what have they got in here? Okay, and I would just start cooking, because that for me was my safety zone, I guess. That's where I felt more at home in the kitchen than I did, hanging out with the cool kids. But that's how I got in with the cool kids, is I was that dude that was always, and it was never planned. And that's the whole thing is, when you're with somebody, you're not planning it out. Oh, I've got to do this for 15 minutes and then da-da-da-da-da. It's, there's got to be an element of spontaneity and that attitude, that level of love when you're cooking. And, if you're rigid when it comes to food, the food's going to taste like shit. If you're doing it from a position of focusing on the end result, embrace the process, enjoy, the meticulousness of it and things like that. And, put your ass into it, man. If you're not having a good time, don't fucking do it.
Yeah.
And that was the reason I started doing Culinary Anarchy, is because I realized that a lot of people fucking hate food. A lot of people don't give a shit about food. They don't give a shit about cooking. My whole goal was to kind of bait and switch people to where they would start following me because of my tales of sex and drugs and rock and roll. True. And demystify this, because I feel like there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of pretentiousness, there's a lot of gatekeeping, as we were talking about. And a lot of these chefs spend so much time looking down their nose at other people, and it's like, motherfucker, there was a time that you didn't know how to make a fucking roux. There was a time that you didn't know how to fucking hold a knife, man. Like, get over yourself, dude. Like, don't forget where you came from.
That's genuinely how I feel about music. I mean, I'm fairly well versed when it comes to, just music, be it all the way from the 20s to, the early 2000s. It's just something that I just happen to be able to latch on to, being a conventional artist. And, you can always find somebody who will be able to meet up with you once you have sort of talked about a kind of music with them, especially if they're not used to it. But one of the things I can't stand is somebody who acts like they were born with all that knowledge.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? It's like I can sit here and I could tell you about, this obscure band, from the early 40s that I happen to enjoy just because of, this one guitar player or something. And
Yeah.
then there's people who are just genuinely like, oh, what, you didn't know that?
And that kind of, but I think that, the older I get, the more I realize that people like that are just masking their own insecurities, and especially dealing with the online trolls and things like that.
Or people that, if you happen to like this one band that, only 20 people have heard of, and then all of a sudden they start getting a little bit of fame, and, those same people call them sellouts. It's like reverse snobbery.
No, because I think it was oh, fuck. God damn it, I'm picturing the dude's fucking face in my head right now, but dude was talking about, how, Green Day and Rancid didn't sell out. They just became popular. Selling out is when you go and you start as something and then you change your entire fucking style. And it's not a matter of evolving, it's a matter of just straight changing. And I think one of the examples of that, I've never heard their earlier shit, but apparently the Guru shit put a fucking band originally, and then switched over to. And again, I've never heard any of their early punk stuff, whatever. But like the dude was saying, Green Day, Rancid, they didn't sell out. They were making that music already, and then the public caught up to them. And
Wolves has a bit more of a commercial sound than Let's Go, you know what I mean? But I mean,
yeah.
Still, it was punk.
But I feel like that too is where a band has to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, let's think about Life Won't Wait. That record is like the ultimate in their evolution. I think when they were like, okay, we have the ability to let the record company let us do whatever the fuck it is that we want to do. Now there's certain genres that we like that we really haven't been able to focus on. Oh shit, let's bring in Buju Banton.
Exactly, but it made sense because they already had the ska background. Whereas, God bless AC/DC, but it's like the old joke, interviewer asked Brian Johnson what it's like to release, 5 albums that sound exactly the same. And he says, no, motherfucker, we released 7 albums that sound exactly the same. Like, the bands that I listen to, I want to be able to hear their evolution and their rougher stuff in the early beginnings and listen to them get polished up, listen to them get a little bit more cohesive as a band.
I agree with you, especially with that band that's on that poster behind you, with Social Distortion. Sex, Love, and Rock and Roll is the pinnacle of their writing.
Oh yeah, and every time I see them, I've seen them 3 or 4 times now, and they get better every time.
I bump Mike's knuckles from the front row.
Funnily enough, this poster in the background, that's actually where my wife and I met our wedding photographer, because again, we're not normal people. We did not want a normal standard wedding photographer. And there's another venue out here that I've performed at called the Ivy Room. We're in line, we see this chick taking photos, and she's got an Ivy Room hoodie on. I'm like, that chick's cool as shit. And then later on, we bumped into her in the pit taking photos, and I was like, yeah, this is the chick that we got to get for our wedding photos. We want to do a punk rock wedding album. And yeah, we got her. And so yeah, I'm proud to be able to say that got married at a dispensary, met our photographer at a fucking Social D show.
This is Black Dragon points out that one of the bands that definitely stuck to their story and never sold out was Gwar.
Oh yeah.
They never ever changed from what they were in any possible way. Whether it was the lyrics or the stage show, nothing ever changed about them. Sort of like Slayer.
I genuinely don't think that I don't think that anybody is more surprised about Gwar's success than Gwar, because it's, the band started as a joke. They were never meant to be taken seriously. And I think that that's one of the reasons why they became so popular, is because they weren't trying to be taken seriously. They were having fun, and people felt that. People connected, maybe not with the music and the stage,
just the absurdity of all of it.
yeah, with the authenticity of it, because they weren't being fake. They were being very, very real, as
No,
obnoxious and crazy
I
as they
mean,
are.
if you knew you were going to go to a Guar concert, if you knew anybody that was going to go to a Guar concert, there was no there was no surprise what you were going to do, what you were going to be expecting. It was like literally going to be like, okay, these aliens landed on Earth and they did what they did for like an hour and a half and then they fucked off. That's pretty
Yeah.
much the best way to describe it. Like, you're not going for, you know, quintessential British tea time or
Yeah.
or to hear, you know, long yarns about the environment a la Bono. No, you're gonna go watch the Pope get a cross stuck in his ass.
Oh God, yeah, and it's gonna be that's part of the reason being in Berkeley is because God only knows what the fuck they're gonna do this time. Like,
Yeah, I mean, genuinely, you have no idea. I mean, especially because they respond to the current political climate. I mean, Republicans, Democrats, it doesn't matter.
they do not give a. They are one of the bands that really does not give a shit at all. And yeah, like I said, I mean, the fact that they were from my hometown because growing up before the internet and shit like that in the '90s, my first introduction to Gore was on Beavis and Butthead, and then you find out that they're a hometown band literally from an hour away from you, and it's like, holy shit.
Or Empire Records.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you talk about Nancy Ray Gun Lounge. Let me ask you this: do you remember a club in Richmond, downtown, off of 7th and Main called Fireballs?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I was just saying it was a very short-lived punk club down there, but it was absolutely amazing. And ironically, I was working the door there when I was 20 years old, so I was doing the door before I was even old enough to get into these shows and shit.
I
So
was playing
got to
rockabilly
hang
and
out.
psychobilly up there, by the way. So, you know,
Yeah,
I'd
do you
play at
remember?
Wonderland a lot.
Do you remember a band called Car Bomb Incorporated or Sixer?
I don't.
Okay, they were late '90s, early 2000s. So, I mean, it was like I said, Richmond. Richmond unfortunately had a very, very, very underground, underrated scene, and it gets a bad rap because of the shit like the Confederacy and the conservative. But it's like VCU, the fan, Shucko
Yeah.
Bottom,
Yeah, Shockoe
especially
Bottom
with like
especially.
I mean, because I remember, back when fucking Have a Nice Day Cafe, which I don't even know if that's around
Mm-hmm.
anymore, that was the Flood Zone. And that's,
Mm-hmm.
again, Dave Matthews used to do a Tuesday night set there every single week. And I mean, I was drinking down in the Flood Zone, or I was drinking down at the bottom when I was 17, well underage, because I knew people up there. So
Yeah,
a whole lot of people were.
I loved Wonderland. Like, Chad was always a great dude, and it was the first time I'd ever had fried macaroni and cheese. That kind of blew my fucking mind to begin with. But also,
Yep.
you know, I mean, that's where rockabilly and psychobilly happened at, was at Wonderland.
Yep. Well, and I think the Fireballs kind of took a little bit over from that because that was where, like, I mean, I remember seeing so many good acts there, and it was so funny too because again, I wasn't even old enough to be able to get in there, but I started working in the kitchen, and then, oh hey, here we need you to check IDs and do door, and we need you to bar back, and we need you to do all this other shit. I was their little junior gopher in there for a minute.
Well, you know, you got to work your way up the alley. I mean, up the ladder. Sorry about that. Black Dragon
yeah,
says, I'm also a rockabilly fan. Oh, well, then just check out my music. I think you'll enjoy it. So I see that you got your guitar back there. What age did you start playing?
I started playing when I was 18, and I moved to Richmond. And ironically, it was Dave Matthews that got me interested in playing music.
Interesting. So you were already about the weird chords?
Well, no. Here's the thing: is I was already I grew up in a very musical household. My grandparents, who more or less kind of raised me, they were very into like outlaw country, like real country, like
Like
Hank
slow
Williams
phaser
Sr.
on the Telecaster country.
Yeah, that kind of shit. And then my mom was into Pink Floyd, Heart, Fleetwood
Yeah.
Mac, shit. My older sister. She was into 80s new wave and stuff like that. And then I had a babysitter that turned me on to Prince when Purple Rain came out. So I've been a Prince fan since I was like fucking little kid. But the point is, I always listened to, I mean, I remember loving Dr. Dre's The Chronic when that first came out, as well as getting into punk when I was young. I've been a Social Distortion fan since I was 16. But I got into Dave Matthews Band, and this is where it gets weird. They came out with, it was him and Tim Reynolds live at Luther College. And I remember getting that CD, and my roommate at the time, I was living in the Fan right off of Hanover and Mulberry. My roommate at the time had her dad's acoustic that was literally just like a decoration. Like nobody had tuned this thing in years. God only knows how old the fucking strings were on that thing. I asked her, mind if I like learn how to, fuck with this thing? She's like, yeah, I don't give a shit, whatever. But I'm listening to this Dave Matthews thing, and it's just him and Tim Reynolds on acoustic guitar, and I'm like, if this pussy can fucking do this on this, I have to learn how to do this. So even though it was Dave Matthews that inspired, it was still a very punk rock, like, oh yeah, like this is like, and then once I got into guitars and learned music, I also realized like, yeah, he might be kind of a wuss, but he's also got like a 5 or 6 fret stretch, and he's got like these fucking gorilla-sized hands that can do shit that like most other guitar players physically can't. So, but yeah, I mean, even when I got into guitar, it was still very like a lot of different influences, and finally switched from acoustic to electric a few years ago. Realized that the Telecaster was what everybody that I loved was really playing on, and it was kind of a bare bones, no bullshit instrument.
Yeah, 2 pickups, three selections, 2 knobs, fucking done. If it was good enough for Danny Gatton, it's good enough for me.
Well, I do have to say this though. My first guitar, the first one that I ever bought, you'll be impressed with this, was one of the reissued Dan Electro convertibles. And I almost bought that same guitar at an antique store just recently, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, holy shit, it's the first guitar that I've ever bought, but it was at an antique store because, this thing's like 27 years old now. So,
but it had a little bit of mojo on it, though.
Oh, God, yeah. And, especially those old Dan Electros. I mean, they were simple, but...
That's what Hendrix started off on.
It's the same thing fucking Jimmy Page recorded the first Zeppelin album on a DC-10, if I'm not mistaken. So before he switched over Les Pauls, that's why that album has a little bit more brightness because of those lipstick pickups.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody knows about the Dragon Telly.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're very underrated guitars. If I ever get the chance to and have the time to fuck around, I'm probably going to go buy another old Telecaster and switch out the pickups and drop in a set of Dan Electro lipstick pickups. Just, like I said, I don't take it seriously anymore. I still play just for my own amusement and occasionally to do soundtrack work in my films, but I'm enjoying it a lot more now that I'm not trying to, like, I've got to learn these songs. I've got to, taking shit seriously like that kind of takes the fun out of it, and that's why I go through phases with the website and shit like that, where it's like, if I'm not feeling it, I'm not going to spend 2 hours trying to write garbage and have it be mediocre. I'd rather just not put out anything today than it be something I'm not thrilled about. I
wait for when the antenna naturally wants to come up. And then I know that I got something happening. But, I mean, there's a lot of, for me, I've been really, really, really in that Django world. So for me, it's just been a whole lot of, learning standards and then seeing how different artists attack their idea of improvisation over those standards, because those chords never change. You could be playing All of Me by yourself, or you could be playing All of Me with somebody that you never met before from a different country. As long as they know it in the same key, you're good to go. You know what I mean? So that's sort of that's sort of been what I've been doing to keep me sane during everything that seems to be more and more prevalent as far as the erosion of the First Amendment and the Constitution in general goes. Did you watch the Jimmy Kimmel monologue?
I haven't because I canceled my Hulu subscription.
I mean, on YouTube.
I haven't, no, because I got up this morning and haven't had a chance to, because I was like dragging ass this morning before we got up. I did catch the one quote, and I was very, very impressed with it. I'm looking forward to seeing the monologue, but where he talked about this show isn't important, the fact that a show like this can exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was Joman that summed it up best. You know, he's like, can't believe that I'm agreeing with the guy from the fucking Man Show, but here we are. And I had completely forgot. I was like, the fuck is he talking about? Oh, yeah, wait, Jimmy Kimmel was on the Man Show with Adam Carolla. What the fuck?
Yeah, like back in the day. But I mean, when a bipartisan call comes out from people like not just the Democrats, but also Ted Cruz and Rand Paul saying how this is dangerous, but mostly for their own political reasons. They say that it's dangerous because, you know, they know that there's a good chance they're going to get shellacked in the midterms. And, you know, when Democrats come back to power, they don't want them, you know, turning around and using all of these crazy ass laws on them.
Well, and that's, you know, it's, I don't know. I mean, I know this, okay? I'm a chef living in fucking Oakland. I don't have a background in politics. I don't have the education that I feel like I need in a large regards to be able to comment on these things. One thing that I do know is that there is a whole lot of shit going on behind the scenes that we are not aware of, that on both sides of the spectrum too. There are Democrats that are doing shit behind the scenes, that are making calls, that are working to save this. And you know, it's one of the things that kind of irritated me too is, you know, I'll post, oh, you know, a judge prevented this from happening, or a judge did this, and people have this kind of sense of apathy of like, oh yeah, well, it won't do any good. It's like, motherfuckers.
This is the guardrails. Like, appreciate them.
Otherwise, they would just be rolling through all this shit, and you can't even imagine how much worse it would be right now if you did not have people gumming up the works and doing shit like this. And, you know,
I mean, because of shit like that is why in your state now they can't wear masks.
Yes. Yeah, and I'll be the first one to fucking tell you, I am not a huge fan of Newsom. There's a lot of shit, because you got to remember, he was the mayor of San Francisco for a minute. I was out here. He was not a very popular mayor of San Francisco. But, and this brings me on to a much broader point, but again, there's a lot of shit that Newsom does that I'm not particularly a fan of. I honestly can't think of a single politician that I can honestly say that I agree with 100%. AOC comes to mind, Bernie Sanders comes to mind, but I'm sure that if I dug deep enough that they would have done some shit that would have pissed me off at some point. The broader point that I'm trying to bring with that, because I feel like this is very, very fucking important that people need to hear this, is I see, especially on our side, people being way, way, way too fucking individualistic and not taking that attitude and saying, oh, well, I agree with 90% of the shit that this person did and what they're trying to do, but they said this one fucking tweet 5 years ago.
It's this purity tests that is the big problem with the left that keeps them constantly infighting. Whereas, like, I mean, Tom Homan, you know, he fucking got caught on tape taking $5,000, and the Republicans just circle the fucking wagons, dude. Every time they just circle the wagons.
I mean, the level of corruption is just so fucking astounding, and yet we hold our people to such a ridiculously high standard. It's like there's no standard on their side, but we're putting these motherfuckers up on a pedestal where, again, if something, you know, we want to take shit out of context from years ago. And it was also, yeah, okay, yeah, somebody may have said something off color, something may have been very offensive, but have they atoned for it? Have they made that same mistake again? Do they have a history of repeating the same behavior? If they do, that's a fucking problem. If they don't, if it's clear that they've learned from that, then I can forgive them and accept the fact that they've grown up. Because again, there's a lot of shit that a lot of attitudes, a lot of language that I used back in the day that I have to apologize for. And I have to own that shit. Because I was young, I was stupid, I was ignorant, I didn't realize it. And I take responsibility for it too. And I also feel like as long as somebody's taking responsibility and making a genuine effort to change their behavior, yeah, the phrases "I'm sorry" and "I love you" are two of the most over fucking used phrases in the English language, to the point where they don't mean anything. When I say I'm sorry about something, that not only means that I acknowledge and take responsibility for my shit, but it also means that I will not repeat that same action over and over again.
Well, it goes one of two ways depending on how decent of a person you are. Either you atone for that and you become better, or you say the world can just kiss my ass because this is the way that it is, and the world needs to change to the way that it is that I think, as opposed to, you know, saying, you know, fuck, I was wrong and I could be a better person. The song "I Was Wrong" by Social Distortion, you know, still hits me like dropping a fucking Buick on a 5-year-old. Tiki Tony says that it was 50,000 that Tom Homan took.
Yeah. Well, but the other thing that I want to point out too is, even with social media, though, I will absolutely thank my fans, because there have been times where I have posted shit that my intention was one thing, it hit a bit differently, and I had several fans that were polite enough to say, "Hey man, this isn't cool, here's why," and I've had to go back and say, "You know what, fuck, you're right, let me remove that and issue an apology." And that I'm grateful for, because that's how I grow.
That's how we grow as people, is to take constructive criticism. Either you can take constructive criticism and grow as a person, or you can instantly play the victim card. It's one of two ways.
I acknowledge the fact that I'm a hetero white male, that I am absolutely born with advantages that most people don't have, and that I don't understand, that I will never fucking understand what it's like. But what I can do is listen. I can listen to women. I can listen to my dishwashers. I can listen to the people that are affected and impacted by this, and ask them what the fuck they need from me. And that's how we grow. And they need my support. They need this. They need that. Okay, I need to fucking listen them. And this works across the board with being an ally. Don't think you fucking know, because you don't. You haven't lived that experience. For me to say that I understand what it's like to be a woman, fuck no. I'm never going to be able to. And, yeah, but I can be an ally, and I can listen to what they say. I can listen to what they need, and, you know, become a better person because of that, and inspire other people to become a better person because of that. Because, again, that's how you fucking learn and grow. You get old when you start to get stagnant, and that's why I love being out here in San Francisco. I love being able to push myself. I love being able to fucking explore and learn about new cultures and get to see, you know, shit like that, like the Lowrider show on Saturday, man. That was, oh my god, wait till y'all see the fucking video that I got. Maybe spend the rest of the afternoon editing that as soon as I get done with this. But, you know, being an advocate for that community, because of the fact that, you know, coming from an outsider and learning about it and seeing, damn, like, I didn't know this, you know, and seeing how wonderful of a community it is, you know, and trying to fucking, you know, paint them in the right light correctly, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I was having this discussion in the Discord with some friends, and said that one of the things that we need to realize is going to be a hard pill to swallow, and it's that the rich are always going to fund the right because the left wants to tax them. So if you're wondering why right-wing propaganda is all over, and why, you know, it seems to be that there's a certain shift of power in certain ways are headed towards the right. Well, that's why, is because of the money machine that's behind it. Now, once that happens and power is achieved, and then you start seeing how, well, just dreadful at governing. That's why we're starting to see special elections in Iowa and Florida and now Arizona. And, you know, they're going Democrat because people are like, okay, we were lied to, Everything's still really expensive. We're possibly going to war with Venezuela. All of our allies hate us, you know, I mean, and on and on and on. And so all of the Democrats that have won in these seats are young Democrats. And that tells you right there that there's a need for people like Pelosi and Schumer to see their way out. It's time for new blood.
Well, and I don't want to say see their way out, but guide these younger Democrats and be able to learn. Yeah, because I feel like there needs to be a sense of unity there. I feel like there needs to be a sense of harmony between...
I think so, but man, like if they can just keep their corporatist shit to themselves.
Oh, agreed. And that's again kind of going back to what I was saying about, you know, there's really no politician that I can say that I agree with 100%.
No.
But I have to look at, you know, am I willing to sacrifice this small thing for the greater good for this? And kind of, you know, I view it as a difference between playing checkers and playing chess.
Well, go ahead.
Ultimately, I feel like, you know, our side, we're going to have to step back and unfortunately make a few sacrifices here and there so that we don't get put in checkmate. We're going to, you know, and unfortunately that, because you got to realize the right doesn't give a shit. The right is willing to fucking sacrifice and shoot themselves in the fucking foot. They don't give a fuck. We have seen that.
Because they can just turn around and blame the Democrats, and, you know, the uninformed casual voter will just immediately buy it, as opposed to, you know, doing their own research, especially if it signals any of their, I suppose, their biases that they had going into out of the conversation or the voting booth. I think when it comes to these younger Democrats, we have some real firepower in like Jasmine Crockett, Maxwell Frost. I think Melanie Stansbury, and then of course, you know, we have some older, you know, gentlemen who actually, you know, can bring the heat too. You know, like Raskin or Dan Goldman. I really like Robert Garcia. I think that given the right situation, that it can be an incredibly effective House of Representatives when it comes to not only blocking this regime's agenda, but also possibly, just possibly, putting forward legislation that could help people that, in my opinion, why wouldn't Trump want to take credit for that kind of legislation that would help people? Is it just so that, is it just so ingrained that we refuse to work with the left, that we need to just crash everything because that's what Putin told us to do? Is that really the game plan?
That is the level of sociopathic and narcissism that we are dealing with. And yeah, unfortunately, and people think that it's a bad comparison, but motherfucker, let me tell you something. I've dealt with the archetype of Trump repeatedly throughout my entire life because he's the same fucking shady ass marauder that every fucking town on earth has. And these people think that they are untouchable. They think that they are invincible. It's a total fucking facade to make up for their failures, and they are driven by fear and ego. Either they want everybody to be their friend and kiss their ass, and they surround themselves with fucking yes people, but with their opposition, for example, you know, they're best friends with every random motherfucker that comes into the bar, acting like they're hot shit. But then, God forbid, if a fucking line cook says, "Hey man, my check was shorted by, you know, 20 hours last week," and then all of a sudden the mask is turned and they are the most vicious. Oh yeah, I've got lawyers and you can't fucking do, and they think that they are all powerful and unstoppable. And once you come to the point where you realize like they're just full of shit, and I mean, granted, yes, Trump is very, very dangerous, but ultimately, let's face it, he is not intelligent at all. And
I don't think he can read genuinely.
I mean, I for a long fucking time thought it was syphilis.
I genuinely don't think he can read.
I don't know what the fuck. I don't understand how the fuck we elected a reality star, because I can understand.
Because he lets bad people be the worst version of themselves.
He encourages it, and it's fucking disgusting because I grew up in the 80s, man. Like, I remember what Red Dawn and fucking Rocky
Yeah,
4
well,
and us.
I mean, not just with the Russian shit with that, but I remember like Gordon Gekko, like the sleazy dudes in the suits. Those are the bad guys.
And now we're worshiping them, and that's the problem. Is this individualism? And you're right. I feel like the right is pushing propaganda that is trying to separate us because nobody gave a shit about, again, Mrs. Doubtfire when that came out, and that ended with Robin Williams having his own TV show, reading to kids while they were, while he was dressed as a woman, and that's that
Nowadays,
outrage.
that would, good God.
But that's the thing is like, as an ally, and this is what I tell people, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. I love the LGBTQIA community. But me personally, I don't give a fuck if somebody, like, it doesn't involve me. It's not, the
No.
reason I'm such an ally isn't because I feel like these people need to be treated special. It's because I see the amount of fucking hate and just venom that they deal with. And it breaks my fucking heart because I see the shit that they leave for me in the comments section. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going, Jesus Christ, you say you're the family values party, but you're saying this shit to a fucking kid and encourage him to fucking off him? Like, dude, fucking, like,
Well, Christian
that
nationalism
kind of
is a
shit.
lot different than the actual teachings of Jesus, as we've
And that's,
discovered.
oh my God. And
I was raised
it
in Christian nationalism, so
yeah, I was
me
raised so bad.
me myself, being of the rainbow community myself, found that growing up in the town that I did in Central Ohio, there wasn't exactly a lot of open-mindedness when it came to that.
No,
So
and
it
there,
was a constant struggle for not just identity, but to also not be a stereotype, because I like what I like. I like punk rock. I like heavy metal. I like blues. I like guitar. I like
yeah,
horror films and all that. I do not seem what people would typically think of when it comes to somebody who's in the rainbow community. But by God, that is me. So there was a whole lot to constantly to deal with, because and there wasn't folks who were what I was into in the rainbow community, because I hadn't discovered the industrial community yet. And
yeah,
but also at the same time, the full-on rainbow community was nothing I was interested in, because dancey techno music and that kind of thing and bright colors wasn't exactly my bag. So when I discovered Rocky Horror, that was when I found my people.
yeah.
And I think that no matter what happens, as far as this world of, being consistently mocked and shunned and looked down upon for being part of the rainbow community, Rocky Horror will always be there as a safe space for not just people who are well solidified in their identity, but also people who are curious in their identity.
Yeah. Well, and that's, being somebody that, and I refer to myself as being painfully straight because of the fact that in a community like San Francisco, it's like,
You're straight,
if
not
I was ever,
narrow.
yeah, I mean, if I was ever interested in that, I am comfortable enough in myself to where I could go and have as much fun as I want to, and trust me, I have. But, that's the thing, is like, if it was up to me, I'd be twice as much of a slut as I was, but that's just not my thing, and that's, you know, coming from the East Coast, I don't want to say that I was homophobic, but I was very ignorant because, again, not knowing a lot of people in that community,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
majority of, but then, yeah, I come out here and obviously it's all over the fucking place. I started hanging out with this chick that was in a band. She started taking me to various clubs in San Francisco, and it put me into that community. And yeah, it was awkward at first. I'm not gonna fucking say that it wasn't, but at the same time, it was also like, okay, it's very clear that I'm safe here. These guys aren't like trying, it's like I tell people all the
maybe
fucking time.
everything I was taught was bullshit.
Well, and it's like I tell people all the time, in my entire life, I have had two dudes cross the line with me and make me feel unsafe after I made it clear, hey, I'm a breeder, it's not going to happen. Twice. Okay, twice. there's not a single fucking woman on earth that probably hasn't been sexually harassed twice today. You know, and so like, and I'll never forget there was they just reopened it, ironically enough. I don't think they've still got the same bathrooms. There was a place called Studs out here 20 plus years ago.
Oh, is the Knockout still there?
I'm not sure. I want to say yes, but I might be wrong. I haven't
I
gone
love
to
that
those
joint.
clubs well, Folsom Street's coming up this Sunday, so
Oh,
I'm
well.
going to be in
Party time.
Yes. Oh, it's gonna be well, but that's the thing that I loved, especially attending Folsom Street for the first time, having no idea what the fuck I was going into. The level of respect, because you see some of the craziest. I tell people it's like a kinky version of Mardi Gras.
Yeah, yeah.
But everybody out there is respectful as fuck of everybody else, and nobody like I said, nobody is making anybody else feel weird. Nobody else is trying to force themselves.
And it's not like your typical pride parade, so, you know, parents don't really bring their children there as much as the right-wingers scream about, you know, children on Folsom Street.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing. It's like, you know, okay, pride parade, I can see that. That's definitely awesome, even though there is some semi-risque shit, but it's nothing worse than you see anywhere else, and it's also a matter of context on how they're being exposed to it. You know, are they seeing some naked dude in body paint walking by, or are they being left alone in a room, or something? Like, big fucking difference between.
I mean, I've said it multiple streams, and it's you know, the definition of tyranny is the removal of nuance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely, and again, there's a difference between, you know, somebody engaging in an adult act and the human form walking by in public, you know. And obviously, if parents are taking their kids to that, these parents also are able to communicate with their kids.
I'd like to think that there's a level of communication that, you know, establishes as to the environment that they'll be in. But I mean, like I said, when I think of Folsom, I mean, it's rarely that you truly see children there because everybody knows what Folsom is.
Yeah, exactly. And parents know that, you know, Pride is cool, but Folsom Street is wide the fuck open, and it is an adult-oriented event. And, you know, yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable with kids being out of Folsom, and I'm not saying that there probably won't be a couple of them out there, but again, I think that that's also where things get a little bit more.
And it's just the removal of that nuance is why it's able to be weaponized.
Well, and that's one of those things too, where it's like people are also respectful. Like, you know, I smoke weed, I curse, I do a lot of shit that is not acceptable for me to do around kids. But you know what? When I am around kids, or when, you know, if I'm sitting out in my front yard and I see somebody pushing the stroller, I put my joint down.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to fucking blaze.
It's just a matter of, I think that decency and empathy really go hand in hand. And I think that that's a big problem when it comes to what we're dealing with, when it comes to the, you know, all this fascist shit, is decency is considered virtue signaling. And empathy is very much the same, whereas both of them are the antithesis, if not the cure, for narcissism.
Well, and that's, yeah, empathy and compassion are kind of the root of my anarchy, because a lot of people think that anarchy's got to mean without rules and da-da-da-da-da. No, it means cooperation. It means us getting to the fucking point as a society where we don't need people telling us how to behave, where we don't, where we, you know, are able to evolve enough, and it's going to take generations, hundreds of fucking years for us to get to that point, where you don't have people that are trying to sneak around and bend the rules and things like that and take advantage of other people, take advantage of people that are somehow weak, but instead view people that are not as able or not as capable and try to help them up and help to empower them.
Well, you know? I genuinely think that after this this term of Dark Ages is over, and people have seen what happens when, as long as, you know, we actually do have elections, but seeing what happens when the world turns to this, and, you know, they know that it's ugly, and luckily more and more people are waking up. You know, just the amount of money that Disney lost alone because they wanted to try to shred our First Amendment. Dude, it has been so awesome getting to hang out with you. Show your book again. Tell people where they can get it.
You can go and find all sorts of stuff. Go on to Culinary Anarchy. There's a link to my shop that has all of my books. It's got all of my merchandise, and it's also got what the fuck? Yeah, now it's got books and merchandise. It's got all that fun stuff. I've even got a couple of prints up there. The other thing I will tell people, if you want to see behind the scenes stuff that I don't always publish on Facebook and social media, check me out on Patreon. Super easy to find. Patreon.com, Culinary Anarchy. I've got a bunch of footage from Saturday from the lowrider competition that I'm going to be working on today. That should hopefully be published. I'm interviewing the band Brass against on tomorrow. Actually, shit, I got to get that ready. And then on Thursday, again, I'll be at Folsom Street. So I got a lot of shit coming up here real soon. And again, Patreon, they get to see all that stuff at least a day or two beforehand. But yeah, Skip, it's been awesome. Awesome talking to you. Thanks for having me.
The pleasure has been mine, and man, I can't wait to have you on a gaming stream sometime. Those are great. It's I do my thing, and then we just either comment about what's going on the screen, or we answer questions, or just talk shit. It's a good time. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Culinary Anarchy. Say that 10 times fast. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, make sure you give them some love out on the internet. And until then, later, skaters.
Take care. Cook like you fuck. Bye. All right, we all